iron is pushed into the tree, wounding it on purpose. Then a syringe filled with salt water is emptied inside the hole. This causes the tree to flood the damaged area with sticky resin to stop the damage. And over the next few years, the resin slowly spreads, turning into a sweet-smelling wood deep inside the trunk. Finally, it's harvested and sold for thousands of dollars per pound before being made into a luxury perfume. A red hot. If you stuck a long sword out of a car aiming for a tree, the sword would obviously snap and rip from your hands. But what if the sword is unbreakable, you have an indestructible grip, and your body is physically immovable? Well, the force would then transfer to the car. It would screech to a halt as the sword hits. But what if the car can't stop and is forced to keep moving? Now the tree should split in half. But if the tree is indestructible too, with no way to break, bend, or stop, the energy has nowhere to escape. Would this unleash a massive shockwave as powerful as a nuclear explosion? Or worse, something reality itself isn't equipped to contain? If you're stuck in a water slide that's filling up with water, most people think they should try to climb back up. But the slippery surface makes this nearly impossible. Instead, focus on staying calm and try to create space for air by tilting your head back. If water keeps rising, use your hands to push yourself forward. If you can't move, brace yourself as the water fills the slide entirely. Once the pressure equalizes, you may be able to push forward and float to safety. Imagine waking up in a coffin. Imagine waking up in a coffin and realizing that you were mistakenly buried alive. Now, this wouldn't happen with the medical guidelines we have today. But in the 19th century, old coffins were found with scratch marks on the inside, making this a legitimate concern. So as a solution, they started adding strings inside the coffins that traveled up to the ground and were connected to a little bell. And if you woke up underground in a coffin, you could just ring the bell, signaling that you're still alive. Imagine if you're trapped in the trunk of a vehicle, you should immediately start searching for the glow-in-the-dark. If you're trapped in the trunk of a vehicle, you should immediately start searching for the glow-in-the-dark release hatch. If you don't see the latch, don't panic. Trunks are not airtight, so there's no risk of running out of oxygen. Try feeling around the edges of the trunk for a handle. This may allow you to release the seat back. As a last resort, kick out one of the brake lights. This small opening will allow you to signal for help. When you use a derma roller, it pushes a bunch of tiny needles into your face, creating small punctures across the surface. Your brain perceives these small holes as wounds, which triggers your body's natural healing response. The body then sends out cells to make collagen and elastin, which helps your skin stay firm and stretchy. Over time, these cells strengthen the skin, giving a firmer and more youthful appearance. A tiny nail is placed inside the drilled hole. Then it's glued shut and repainted. This makes one side of the die heavier, causing the opposite side to land face up more often, allowing you. If you get a skin tag, some people think you can just rip them off yourself, but you actually shouldn't do this. You see, skin tags are connected to your body by a thin piece of tissue, and if you looked inside of it, the tag actually has its own nerves and blood vessels. Ripping it off would cause significant bleeding, and the open wound would be susceptible to infection. Instead, if you want them removed, a doctor can freeze them off with liquid nitrogen, which is a better option. Have you ever wondered why the letter E isn't used to grade? Teachers use A, B, C, D, and F, but they skip E. Why is this? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. You see, back in the day, schools did use the letter E, but in the 1930s, they decided to stop after students and parents thought that it meant excellent. It was quickly replaced with F, because F for failed made more sense. Have you ever wondered why the letter E isn't used to grade? Teachers use The soldier's foot would break through a hidden bamboo slat and into a hole if they stepped onto a cartridge trap. Inside, a bullet was positioned on top of a nail that was fastened to a wooden board. And when the soldier's foot hit this shell, it pushed the nail into the primer. This caused the shell to suddenly explode and shoot back up at the soldier. The soldier's foot would break. When a tiny frog hops into a giant tarantula's burrow, it seems like it's walking right into a trap. But the spider checks the frog with its legs, and if the frog has the right chemical signals, it's safe. The frog helps by munching on ants that could attack the spider's eggs. In return, the tarantula becomes the frog's bodyguard, scaring off bigger predators. It makes the frog seem like a pet, but they're really just tolerant roommates. If you plucked out a single strand of your hair, it could hold about 40 pennies without breaking. But if you braid just half of all your hair into a rope, the combined strength could hold up a large SUV. And if you add in all of your hair into the rope, it could withstand about 15 metric tons, which is about the weight of a young gray whale. If you touch a cactus, you'll probably get the spines stuck in your skin. And if you try to pull them out, you can actually break them off in your flesh because they're so fragile. So instead, you should apply a layer of glue over the area. Once it is dried, quickly peel it off in a smooth motion. This will pull out the spines evenly, causing them to stay intact. His teeth were infected and fell out, so by the time he became president, he only had one tooth left. It was removed to fit his dentures, but they weren't made of wood like you might think. Instead, they were crafted from the teeth of animals and even other humans. But they barely fit and were painful to wear. This made it hard to speak, and he even avoided smiling, which is why he looks so grumpy in all of his portraits. A few days ago, I showed you how this trick was done, and I was wrong. This is how I originally explained it. Cane, base, rods, back brace, harness. All that's left for the magician to do is use his core strength to pull his legs up. Well, this magician, known as Special Head, left a comment on my TikTok. He also made a response video proving that my theory is wrong. There appears to be no base or harness. In fact, Special Head has some other videos online where he just touches someone's head and levitates. So what's going on here? What's the real explanation to this trick? The answer is that I have no idea. If you chip a piece off of your tooth, a dentist might shave down the surrounding area. Then a bonding material that matches your tooth color is applied and shaped to match the original appearance. Once the shape is near perfect, a special light hardens the material, making it as durable as the tooth. Finally, the dentist polishes the tooth to blend it seamlessly with the others.